Alright there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. So we're back on Old Red here today. We're going to start going through this truck here for our winter maintenance. Every year I try to take a little time off in the winter and I'll completely go through the truck. Everything that needs to be fixed or will need to be fixed soon. We just kind of try to go through everything and try to get everything fixed up, so when I get super busy in the spring, you cross your fingers and you hope that you don't have a whole lot of trouble. Doesn't always work out that way, but you know, that's what we try to do. So I think our winter maintenance here is probably going to be two separate videos. We're going to start in the back of the truck here and go through everything in the back of the truck. And then I smacked 3 deer here this fall. I got a fawn, I got a doe, and I got a buck. If I was a deer hunter, I'd be pretty happy. But I'm not a deer hunter, and so it doesn't make me very happy. But we're going to have some stuff to fix up there, and that's probably going to be a separate video. But we're going to start in the back of the truck here. Kind of the main things we got to go through is the drive tires do need to be rotated. I'm going to go, while the wheels and tires are off, I'm going to go ahead and put brake shoes and drums on it. On that corner up there, I snapped the axle U-bolts here this fall, so I want to go ahead and change the other 3 of them. So these U-bolts down here. The 2 that I already changed, they were a real pain in the butt, so I'm hoping I can maybe come up with a little better way to do that. But we'll see how that goes. I got a couple of air leaks to chase down, and probably going to pull the drive lines out, send them off to get rebalanced, because I've actually never had this drive line balanced, and I was fighting some drive line vibration issues this year. So I think they need the entire assembly to balance it, so we're probably going to pull all the drive lines out, run them up, get them balanced, throw them back in, and then whatever else we find while we got everything tore apart. So I pulled the truck in here last night hoping everything would warm up nice and be nice and warm. And the truck would be nice and warm when I come in this morning, except the batteries in my thermostat went dead. So it was not nice and warm in here this morning. It wasn't too bad. This whole shop is spray foam insulated, so it actually holds heat in pretty good. But it was about 50 degrees in here when I came in this morning. So we got the heater fired up and it's warming up in here. So to pull these fenders off, basically all we got to do is just loosen these set screws. Alright, so you can see these brake shoes still do actually have a decent amount of life left in them, but while we got the wheels and tires and everything off of here, just go ahead and change them. It's not that much more work. Shoes are not that expensive, so a lot of times I like to just do them when I got the wheels off for other reasons, whether they really need them or not. I don't think that would last all the way through next year, so we're just going to go ahead and change them now. Alright, so now all that stuff's good and out of the way. I can go ahead and tackle these U-bolts here. Now, as you can see, I don't see anything actually wrong with them, but there wasn't anything actually wrong with the old ones that broke, so I assume just fatigue stretched over time. Nothing's moving around, but we're just gonna go ahead and change them for peace of mind. It's not that big of a deal. Before I get too carried away, I do want to clean all this dirt out of where these go through this beam here, and we're lube that up with some squirrel piss and all that fun happy horse shit. See, and this here is a real problem with why these really suck. You got a steel U-bolt through an aluminum beam, and you see all that crustiness around the bolts? Yeah, that stuff's gonna be locked in there solid. Alright, so none of this is working. I tried doing some heating and beating down here. I obviously didn't want to get things too terribly hot because this beam here is aluminum, but heat it and beat it and air hammered it and nothing's moving. Don't even have a speck of lube coming out the bottom here yet. Tried air hammering from the top, see if I could get these things wiggling, break some of that loose. Nothing's moving. I kind of anticipated that, so I think we're going to move on to plan B and then most likely plan C. So either way, this rod's got to come off because it's got to come off to put the new U-bolts on. So we're going to take this off. We're going to come in here and we're going to cut these U-bolts off with the plasma cutter, and we're going to try to beat them down. And I'm going to run the nuts up from the bottom, put tension on them, and try to beat them down, see if I can get them to start moving that way. And when that doesn't work, which it probably won't, take the shock mount off, take this airbag bracket off, take this bolt up here off, and with the U-bolts cut off, we should be able to drop this whole beam down off. And we're stick it in the shop press and try that. Alright, so I was kind of thinking I was just going to skip plan B. Plan B is how we did it last time. And I was over at my buddy's shop when we did that because it was closer to where it broke. And we had 3 of us over there, and it was like 2 hours of just straight beating with the sledgehammer before he got them out of there. So I was thinking I was just going to skip plan B and go straight to plan C, especially considering by myself, and that took 3 of us. There was one of us underneath beating on the nuts with an impact, while another one held a big punch with a pair of vice grips, and the other one swung a sledgehammer. And I don't have 9 arms. I'm by myself here today. I don't know. Plan C's not going too well here either. I got the rod off. The bolts were seized in there. I got the nut off the back side of this bottom bolt on this bushing here, and that bolt is seized in that bushing. So we'll keep trying to bust that loose, see if we can get that bolt out of there. If not, we can take the bolts out on here and leave that attached. But I'm pretty sure those are going to be seized too. And to try to get an impact on the top side of that, to try to break those bolts loose, you got the bracket there, the fifth wheel bolts on too, and that's in the way. And you southern guys, you don't know how good you got it. We get to play around in the snow and the ice and the salt, and it really makes a mess of things, especially some of this I haven't touched yet on this truck, and so the last guy probably didn't use anti-seize. So everything's stuck and rusted, and it's a lot of fun. But anyway, we're just going to keep plugging away here, see if we can't get stuff apart. Alright, so here's where we're at. We got shock mount loose, this is loose. Couldn't get that bolt out. Got this bolt out, the nuts off of this one. Sorry, you're kind of fogging up there. Okay, so the nuts off of this one, but it's seized into here, so I think I can just nip the head of this bolt off and get that off, so that should be fine. A lot of times you guys give me grief about going straight to heating and beating and cutting on things. Lube don't work. It works if something's moving. If it's moving a little bit but it's tight, yeah, you can spray some lube on there and get it in there and it'll come off. When stuff's seized solid, the lube don't do nothing. It just don't. I'm sorry, it don't. I wasn't planning on replacing these bushings. If I was, I would have just torch cut these bolts out of here a long, long time ago, and this would have been apart an hour ago. But that's where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and grab the plasma cutter. We're going to cut the U-bolts off. We're going to cut the head off of this bolt and get this whole beam out of here. Now that we got this thing out, let's see what a 20-ton shop press does to these U-bolts. Oh boy, it's already getting tight. Ooh, I don't like that. Oh boy. I was kind of hoping that this would knock them right out. That's actually getting almost scary. There's a lot of tension on that press. so this thing here is all cleaned up. It's ready to go back on. We got all the corrosion cleaned up out of the holes. You can see part of why these get stuck in there so bad. You got a funnel down in here to where the U-bolts go through, and then you got, you know what, 4 or 5 inches there that just gets locked in solid. There's a second there. I was really questioning if that press is even going to get them out, but we got it apart and it's pretty much ready to go back together. Well, I got that apart and room to work in here. Let's go ahead and knock off some of this bubbly paint here so we can clean this up. At least give that a little spritz. Some guys are hesitant to knock this off because they think, oh, well, the paint's still there. It's better than nothing. Yeah, actually, that rust scale actually holds moisture like you wouldn't believe. I've done it before where the truck hasn't been around moisture in a long time, and you start knocking some of the scale off of there, and it'll be wet in there in between the layers of rust. So we're going to clean that up. We're going to wire wheel it real quick, give it a little spritz of some spray paint. It'll be better than doing nothing. And then we're going to start reassembling this. Okay, so we got this hung back on the mount. That inside bolt that I cut off, I had to put that in from the bottom, so it's upside down, the nut's on the top. But that's not going to hurt anything. You got to make sure that you put your shims back in. These shims here actually adjust your pinion angle, and on this rod here you got to make sure that the shims go back in place here because that sets your alignment. But we got this beam here hanging off of here. Next we're going to lift the back up, go ahead and bolt the airbag mount back on. So we got this all back together here now. We just need to torque up our U-bolts. Now, and I looked up the torque spec on this, and I believe it said 482 to 625, so that's a pretty big spread. I think we're just going to go for 550 and call it there. See if we can get myself positioned in a place where this is a little easier. There we go. Right, so you can see how these holes, they start out real big and they go down, I don't know, 1.5 inches or so, and then they taper down to the size of the U-bolts. There's aluminum beam, steel U-bolt. You know, there's no real question why these things get seized all the heck in here. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to do anything, but I'm going to pump this full of grease. Probably just going to wash out and not do anything, but you know what? For the 50 cents worth of grease, it's worth a shot. Alright, so that's all pumped full of grease. I doubt that's actually going to do anything, but you know what? I can't see it hurting. So I think we're ready to throw brakes back on here. Before we do that, go ahead and grab a hold of your S-cam. Check it for any play, which that is good and tight. If it did need S-cams and bushings, now would be a good time to do it. Now that we checked it, we're going to go ahead and grease it up while everything's just out in the wide open. Alright, so we're about ready to start throwing shoes on here. Now is actually a really good time to take a look at your wheel seal. If you got any dampness around your wheel seal here, now would be the time to change it. Now one thing I'll actually do, I don't always do this, but I'll actually, rather than backing the slack adjuster off at this point, I will tighten it. And my dang wrench fell off. And I'm trying to get it back on, and I can't see. Come on. There it is. So then I'll actually tighten it and bring it all the way around, and then that way you're evening out the wear on your S-cam. So just spin it all the way around till you're at the bottom again, and then your top will now be your bottom, and your bottom will be your top. New shoes are on there, looking good. Do have new drums. You can see starting to get a pretty good lip here. Otherwise the drum's not too bad, but definitely time to replace this one. This is also a lightweight drum, which probably isn't the best for my application anyway, but they've been fine. Actually, I used to make a drum very similar to this one. It's not this exact one. The ones that we made didn't have this weld seam right here. But I used to actually work for Arvin Meritor almost 20 years ago. And we made the Steelite ag380, which is a very similar brake drum to this one. Alright, so here's what we're putting on for a new drum. This is just a gunite heavy duty brake drum. It's basically just a heavy cast drum. Typically what I would recommend for a truck that hauls heavy. They certainly were not sparing on the shipping oil on these, so I want to make sure we spend a second and get all that oil off of the brake surface here. Now there is certainly nothing light about these drums. Get them up here. So this corner is all done. The wheels that are going to go on this corner are going to come off of that corner, so we're going to do that corner next. That one doesn't need U-bolts. That's the one that broke U-bolts a couple months ago, and they've already been changed. So basically just need to pull those wheels and tires off, do brakes and drums on that corner, and then those tires will go here after we repolish the wheels. But I don't think I need to show the same thing over and over again, so I'll bring you guys back when we get to something new. So we're on corner number 3 here now, and as you can see, that wheel seal is most definitely leaking. That is freaking nasty. No big deal. We'll throw a wheel seal in there. Everything cleaned up, new seals drove in. Bearings look beautiful, so we're going to reuse them. Going to dump a little gear oil on the bearing. So I've got cop air hooked up to the truck, and my suspension, oh, it's right here. Yep. See, the zip tie broke here, and it escaped on that holder. Got a big hole in it right here. Let's go ahead and, now that we know where that's at, let's go ahead and flip that switch off. Okay, and then we're going to go just past where we crushed the line there and snip that off. There we go. Now I think I'm just going to go ahead and replace this line from there back. So right there you can see where that rubbed through. Go ahead and get a clean square cut there. Cut another piece to the same length. Alright, got that. Back up through there. Perfect. So we dumped our bags, and the only air that's coming out from deflating the bags themselves are not leaking up here anymore. So we're going to go ahead and get this re-secured here. Make sure we get these zip ties good and tight so that none of this stuff can wiggle or move. So back into the truck's all back together. I'm not going to bother putting my baby moons back on here. As soon as we're done with this job, I'm going to be pulling these outside wheels back off to put that coating on there. Alright, so we've been rolling on down the road here for a bit this morning, and roads are pretty good. Just a little bit of dry snow blowing around. It is really freaking cold here this morning. I think it's actual air temperature is 16 below, and then with the wind chill it's like negative 36. But we're cruising right along. Everything's doing pretty good. We're doing 75 miles an hour, and I think that's going to end it for this video here. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you. Have a good day.